Thanks for sharing, guys. We've covered mostly what we wanted to talk about today. For the final section of the podcast, let's move on to the Q&A section. The first question, I believe it was from Stephanie, right?
Yes.
So, this question is, where are we heading to if that continues to rise and property prices keeps going up? So maybe like you want to like expand a little bit on this question before we answer, Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, because being in the property industry, right, I really do see or like feel worried, especially for the younger generation. If the property price continues to rise, like what will happen? And also as people take on more and more debts because maybe they do not know about the implications of that and that, yeah, you get cashback and stuff like that. But there surely is an end to it. There surely is some consequences. That's why I wanted to get some input or opinions from you guys, where you see this going to.
If I think I can just give like a speculative input, but I'm not entirely sure what I'm about to say is true or not, because it sounds like channeling my inner Michael Burry. But I hate to do this, but I feel like when the property market is kind of like propped up by credit, right? Majority, like if you take a look at Clan Valley, a lot of them are like ghost townships, ghost office towers that I mentioned. The occupancy rate is so bad, and I'm just not sure where all the money is coming from. So probably it's all coming from the bank. Or what happens one day if the bank fails? It's going to be like a 08, 09 crisis. And as all this, if it even if it doesn't happen, right, which is good in a sense that it doesn't cripple the economy, it's still bad for the people who want to buy, or like the millennials in general who wants to buy homes for the sake of staying in them. It becomes unaffordable to the point you have to rent. But what happens when everyone is forced to rent? Rentals will go up, and it's just an endless downward spiral that I see. Aaron, maybe you want like chime in.
There's a saying in the investment world, right, that when the tide goes down, you'll see who's swimming naked.
Mm.
um, to basically like to give you a very good example, I hate to use the same example over and over again, and that is to look at the Luna Terra crash that occurred last week. You realize that there were many people, right, who actually invested money that wasn't theirs into a project which was speculative, right? And usually, from my experience, in reading, many books about investing, I'm like freaking nerd when it comes to like investment history, lah. I've read all the way from the 1800s, 1900s, the year 2000. Usually, when housing becomes to a level, right, where it is unaffordable and people cannot buy house, two things usually happen. Either the income is artificially depressed or the houses are artificially high. So one thing has got to give is either the income needs to go up or the property price will probably sideline and go sideways for a prolonged period of time. All right. I would say that, if people are feeling the pain, then what will usually happen is that people will start to rent instead of buy, because it's no longer a question of whether which is better, but a question of whether or not I can even afford it. And if people cannot afford to buy a flat, right, then they'll just rent lah. I mean, end of the day, that is the only solution, the only option they have lah. So supply demand will come and kick in, right? Then the question is how long can this like musical chairs continue before something gives out lah. So unfortunately, I'm not in the property market in Malaysia for me to make a very like reasonable assessment. But my assessment in Singapore is that I don't think it's an overinflated bubble yet. Because our government is very good at making sure that they remove the pressure away from the prices so that it doesn't become unaffordable. Right. But I would say that as a person who has jumped across cities in Southeast Asia, I can completely relate to what Ryan mentioned about ghost towns. Because talking about ghost towns, this is exactly right what happened to China this year for Evergrande. Because they realized that the house of cards start falling down. And overnight, right, people who purchase property are hoping that the property will be complete in 5 years, realize, right, that they overpaid for the house and the house delivery might take more than 5 years to come. And they throw in 2 to 3 generations of wealth in that one house. And if something like that can happen to a country where a GDP is $18 trillion, you don't talk about countries which are smaller. That's all I'm saying. If a country of that size, of that magnitude, you can see such a huge deflation happen so quickly in a matter of months. Don't even talk about smaller countries. Right. This is not the first time that Southeast Asia has seen such massive deflationary asset bubble, because we did go through one in 1997, 1998, 1999, where you see in Southeast Asia, right, the Singapore stock market, I think, fell by 80 to 90%. Your Bursa fell by 90%. Your currency got halved by 50%. Indonesia, the stock market fell by 95%. Their currency also fell by 80-90%. So whatever happened in Russia during the Ukraine crisis, right, actually occurred in every single country in Southeast Asia, including Singapore. So all I can say is, how do you best defend yourself against this type of things, lah? End of the day, it comes back down to make sure that whatever you buy within your means. And make sure that you buy at a value which is fair to you, and try your best not to overpay. Because end of the day, right, whether or not this becomes manageable always stems from the fact that it needs to be manageable in size. I always say it's better to buy something within your means than to overstretch and then realize later, even if the property drops by 50%, you still owe the other remaining 50%. Be prudent, that's what I'm saying. So,
And also, like, I want to chime in, right? Like, never ever factor in your future cash flow growth into your analysis. Like, whatever you earn now is how much it's better just to make your analysis based on whatever you can pay now. Because naturally, yes, everyone would have their salaries increase and all, but what happens if you lose your job tomorrow? You're not able to pay, or you have to take a pay cut, like everyone during COVID, 20-30% pay cuts. So it was a difficult time for everyone. Some weren't able to pay their housing mortgages, but fortunately our government did have like a loan memorandum, but I'm not even sure if I pronounced it correctly, but there's like a moratorium that everyone stopped paying their loans for 6 months, which was great. But in the end of the day, you still have to pay your debt, and just never ever do your analysis based on your future salary or whatever projections you think your salary growth would be, or how much you would earn in the future. Because what truly matters is what you can pay now.
Yep. And I would like to chime in as well, because I've also read about news like how Singapore is so well regulated that there's no such thing as markup or cashback in the property scene. And because there was a case that one developer actually did that in Singapore, and it was brought to it was brought to court. So that actually shows how prudent the Singapore government is as compared to the Malaysia one. So I really want to let people know that to be very careful with cashback, because cashback in the end of the day, it's being paid by the buyer, not the developer, and it actually really kind of affect the overall market value, and really makes it make the property market so much even more not transparent. Meaning to say, when a developer push up the value artificially, then the JPPH, which is our Valuation and Property Services Department, the government one, they will really find it hard to gauge the real price of the property in the area. As for property, right, really don't buy into a property because of the cashback, because I'm seeing, there's cashback promotion, although not being promoted out, but being done more like backdoor. But really I want to get like buyer to really consider before making that decision, because in the end they will have to pay for the cashback, no matter how tempting it is lah. Because at the end of the day, if they buy artificially inflated price property, it will even make it harder for like the Valuation and Property Services Department of Malaysia to really determine the real value of the property, especially like in specific areas. So, and then the price will be continue being pushed up until making, you know, the the market eventually become unaffordable for so many people. And so it will be continuously being manipulated and create this artificial increase in price lah. But then because of the willing buyer, willing seller scenario, so it continues to goes up and up lah. So I find that people need to be aware of the consequences.
Well, that's very interesting. It sounds like the market's like super inefficient in the sense that
Yeah, because
the prices just keep going up.
because eventually, right, the JPPH, which is the Valuation and Property Services Department, they will base on the last transacted price, which is on the sales and purchase agreement. They won't know whether it's manipulated or not. Only the buyer know, only the seller know. So they will eventually based on that to determine, okay, so this is the current market value of that area, for example. So it will continue be up and up lor if it's artificially being inflated.
Oof.
Yeah, so there's a consequences that I see that people are not aware of. They are just thinking, oh, I get cash back, I got extra cash, but not knowing actually there's a bigger consequences for that as well lah.
Yeah, that's definitely a red flag there that not many people actually talk about. So thank you for sharing this today, Stephanie.
No
We were
worries.
just
Really
talking
appreciate
about
it.
me and Eric, we were just talking like all these things, right? You if you're not like in the property scene, you just don't know. And like when you know about it, it's just so scary to
Yeah.
even think about it.
Yeah, so yeah, if you are in the industry, you will be more careful with the whatever marketing thing that people do lah in the industry.
Definitely. That's a good one to watch out for.
Yeah.
All right.